Hello everyone, my name is Dan Basse, President of AgResource, joined by Dr. Bill Tierney, our Director of Research. We're here to talk a little bit about the USDA crop report that came out yesterday. It was the November crop report, and it held big surprises. Bill, you're the last guy that I know of back in 2004 that made big adjustments at WASDE regarding Chinese corn stocks. And that happened again in this report. So roughly 2004 to 2018, we're talking 14 years later.
Well, USDA, there was evidence that would suggest that USDA's corn ending stocks number was too low. Keep in mind that very few countries report stocks, and most of the numbers that USDA publishes are USDA's own estimates. In the case of China, I know that USDA has on multiple occasions, ever since China signed the WTO accession agreement, that publishing stocks estimates was part of their responsibility, and China has never published stocks estimates. So we have to consider the fact that this is very difficult to do. But what has been published over the years is that China had purchased very large quantities of corn from farmers and had locked them up into reserve. And then this past year, in fact, since April, they've auctioned off 100 million metric tons, roughly 100 million metric tons since April of the 2014 and the 2015 crop. So there were data points that were stacking up that would suggest that USDA's corn estimate was too low. I had thought they were going to do this in the May WASDE, which they typically do. Now, what happened was that the National Statistics Bureau of China published revised estimates of corn production, which resulted in roughly a 20% increase in corn production. So in essence, USDA's hand was forced by the publication of 10-year census data, which had jacked up the production number. I believe that USDA was shown some professional courtesy by the Chinese government, and that they got an advanced indication of what those numbers were. Because I can't imagine USDA in less than 24 hours could have revised their balance sheets. So kudos to the USDA for tackling this. I think their numbers are as good as anyone's numbers at this time. And I think the bottom line is, what does this mean for corn prices in the U.S.? What do you think it means, Dan?
I don't think it means anything, Bill. That corn stocks have been there for 10 years. It's just that statistically we found them. China's not exporting the corn because the price of corn within China is at $7 a bushel. In the United States, it'd be 4.5 or 5 at the Gulf. And so in saying that, Bill, they'd have to subsidize it, which is illegal relative to the WTO. So in my view, it doesn't mean much of anything.
I totally agree with you, except under one possible scenario. If we don't get an agreement with China, if trade relations and other relations with China deteriorate even further, China may have an asset, huge surplus corn stocks, that they could choose to export and subsidize. Under the argument WTO doesn't matter, U.S. isn't following WTO rules, we're not following WTO rules. So this possibly gives an incentive to arrive at an agreement, because it suggests that there is another tool available to the Chinese to punish what's perceived by the Chinese to be a critical base of support for President Trump. It's currently been that soybean producers have been punished by the Chinese by their implicit embargo or in their tariff. What if corn producers, which are essentially the same as soybean producers, what if they see China exporting some of this surplus corn, which is now been recognized that they have available? Again, this would require no agreement with the Chinese and a further worsening in trade relations.
And really an avoidance of the WTO, Bill, because the Chinese right now have many cases against the United States stacked up in the WTO, and it's like unlikely that they would walk away from those.
It is, but if you had asked me a year ago if we'd be in this situation today, I would have said, just like you just said, that this is highly unlikely,
Right.
very speculative. I am saying this is very speculative, but it suggests that there is a potential there.
Very interesting stuff, Bill. My name is Dan Basse, joined by Dr. Bill Tierney. Thanks again for listening. We'll be back again next time.